Welcome to another deep dive with My Mind MashUps.
Great to be here.
Today we're plunging into a question really as old as humanity itself. What if we could outlive death?
The big one.
Yeah, and this isn't just a modern obsession. You know, the yearning for immortality is woven into our oldest stories.
Absolutely. Think Gilgamesh, right? His whole epic quest.
Exactly. Or those Chinese emperors drinking mercury elixirs. Maybe not the best idea, but it shows the desire. Or medieval alchemists hunting for the philosopher's stone.
That drive for more life seems deeply human.
It does. And now, this timeless desire is colliding head-on with some really rapid, almost startling scientific advancements.
Things are moving incredibly fast.
So what happens when, cutting-edge science meets these ancient questions about the soul, about human purpose? That's really our mission today.
Yeah, where does technology meet philosophy and, dare I say, spirituality?
Precisely. We're going to explore a concept called longevity escape velocity, or LEV. Then we'll grapple with the huge philosophical questions: is living forever good? Bad?
And maybe touch on the spiritual side, too. What does it mean if the body just keeps going?
Right. So stick with us. And hey, if you enjoy these explorations, please do like, share, and subscribe, or follow My Mind MashUps. It helps us keep making these deep dives.
So to really set the stage, let's talk about the central idea. Longevity escape velocity, LEV.
Okay.
Imagine, just for a second, a future where, for every single year that passes by, medical science gets so good, it adds more than a year back to your remaining life expectancy.
Whoa, so you're always gaining time.
Exactly. You're gaining more time than you're losing. You effectively start escaping age-related death. It's like a rocket hitting escape velocity to leave Earth's gravity.
Okay, that's a powerful analogy. It's not just living a bit longer, it's outrunning aging itself.
Precisely. It's a potential turning point where progress outpaces the aging clock. So in this deep dive, we'll look at the science, try and make this happen, then pivot to the, frankly, mind-bending philosophical side, the soul question, and how society might change.
Okay, escaping gravity. I like that. So LEV means research actually moves faster than we age. Sounds very sci-fi. How real is this? Are scientists seriously talking about timelines?
Well, that's what's fascinating. Some very prominent people think it's closer than you might imagine. Ray Kurzweil, the futurist.
Yeah, I know the name.
He initially aimed for 2028 to 2030. He's since adjusted that slightly to maybe 2029 to 2035.
Still incredibly soon.
Right. And he links this acceleration directly to advances in artificial intelligence using AI to simulate complex biology.
Makes sense. AI is accelerating everything.
Then you have Aubrey de Grey, a real figurehead in the longevity field. He puts the odds at 50-50 for reaching LEV by the mid to late 2030s.
50-50 by the 2030s.
Wow. And he's even speculated quite boldly that the first person who will live to be 1,000 years old might already have been born.
Okay, hold on. 1,000 years old, already walking among us, potentially. That's a lot to take in. What's de Grey's actual plan? How does he think we get there?
His approach is called SENS Strategies for Engineered Negligible Senescence.
Engineered negligible senescence. Okay.
The core idea isn't just slowing aging down. It's viewing aging as essentially an accumulation of specific types of damage, like wear and tear on a machine.
So like rust or worn out parts?
Sort of, yeah. But at the cellular and molecular level, SENS aims to develop therapies to actively repair that damage or remove the junk that builds up. He's identified 7 main categories of this age-related damage.
7 categories, like what?
Things like cell loss and tissue atrophy, the accumulation of senescent cells, those zombie cells we hear about, mutations in mitochondria, protein cross-linking, that kind of stuff.
So he's basically saying aging isn't some mystical force. It's a set of engineering problems we can potentially fix.
That's the essence of it, yeah. A series of treatable conditions.
Does he have like a key milestone, a proof of concept he's aiming for?
He does. He talks about robust mouse rejuvenation, or RMR.
RMR, sure.
Basically, taking middle-aged mice and significantly extending their remaining lifespan, maybe by about 12 months, which is huge for a mouse.
Right, that would be a massive extension proportionally.
Exactly. And de Grey believes that achieving RMR, demonstrating that level of rejuvenation in a mammal, would be the catalyst. It would trigger, in his words, a COVID-scale war on aging. Massive public and scientific buy-in.
A war on aging. But surely not everyone agrees with these timelines.
Oh, definitely not. There's significant skepticism. Some biogerontologists, like Peter Thiel, for example, argue that current approaches, even the promising ones, might only add maybe 10 or 15 years. not the decades or centuries Degré envisions.
Why the skepticism?
They often point to more fundamental, maybe stochastic or random, aspects of aging that might be much harder, perhaps impossible to fully engineer away. It's a very active debate.
Okay, so there's debate, but the momentum, the investment seems undeniable, which brings us to the tech itself.
Yeah.
What are the actual breakthroughs happening right now that could, push us towards this LEV? This is where it gets tangible, right?
Exactly. This isn't just theory. There are several key pillars of technology driving this. First up is cellular reprogramming. You often hear it linked to Yamanaka factors.
Ah, yes, the Nobel Prize work. Turning adult cells back into stem cells.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Using specific proteins, these transcription factors, to essentially coax adult cells back to a youthful, pluripotent state, like hitting a reset button on their biological age.
And companies are actually doing this.
Oh, yeah. Altos Labs, backed by Jeff Bezos, is a huge player. They're reportedly starting human clinical trials by 2025, initially for things like neurodegenerative or immune disorders.
Human trials already. Wow.
And research in mice has shown some incredible results, rejuvenating brain neurons, improving cognitive function, apparently without major negative side effects like cancer, which was an early concern.
Okay, cellular reprogramming. What else?
Then there's Senolytics. These are drugs or compounds designed to hunt down and eliminate those zombie cells. We mentioned senescent cells.
Right, the ones that hang around causing trouble.
Exactly. They stop dividing, but they don't die. Instead, they spew out inflammatory signals that damage surrounding tissues and drive the aging process. Senolytics act like targeted assassins for these bad actors.
Any examples?
Yeah, a combination of dasatinib, which is a cancer drug, and quercetin, a natural flavonoid, showed promise in mice, reduced frailty, extended lifespan. Another one is fisetin. Companies like Unity Biotechnology, which Peter Thiel invested in, are running human trials for age-related conditions like pulmonary fibrosis and even Alzheimer's.
So, cleaning out the cellular junk. Got it. What's next?
Stem cell therapy. We all have stem cells. They're our body's natural repair crew. They can differentiate into various cell types to replace damaged ones.
But they decline with age, right?
That's the problem, stem cell exhaustion. So these therapies aim to replenish or rejuvenate our stem cell populations to boost tissue regeneration, maybe reduce chronic inflammation.
Does this extend lifespan directly?
The evidence for extending maximum lifespan beyond that sort of natural 120, 150 year range isn't conclusive yet. But the potential for improving health span, quality of life, organ function, skin health is enormous. Think organ replacement without donors. Companies like Blue Rock Therapeutics and Sam Altman's Retro Biosciences are working hard here.
Okay, boosting the body's own repair system. And the last pillar?
CRISPR gene editing. This is the tool that allows really precise DNA modification. You can cut, paste, add, delete sections of the genetic code with incredible accuracy.
And how does that fight aging?
Well, just this year, researchers at Stanford used CRISPR to extend the lifespan of genetically altered mice by repairing specific types of DNA damage that build up over time. It's not about finding one immortality gene, but potentially correcting genetic predispositions to age-related diseases, certain cancers, neurodegenerative disorders. By removing those risks, you could significantly extend healthy lifespan.
Wow, okay. Cellular reprogramming, Senolytics, stem cells, CRISPR. That's a powerful toolkit.
If I'm understanding this right, the common thread, the really big shift here, is moving beyond just treating symptoms of old age.
Exactly.
To actually intervening in the fundamental biological processes of aging itself, repairing damage, eliminating harmful cells, correcting genetic errors at the source.
It's a complete paradigm shift. From managing decline to actively pursuing rejuvenation and repair.
And it sounds like some very wealthy, very influential people are betting huge amounts of money that this shift is real. Who's funding this revolution?
You're absolutely right. The money flowing into longevity research is staggering, and it's coming from some of the biggest names in tech and finance. It's really become a major focus for private capital.
Like who specifically?
Well, Jeff Bezos, as we mentioned, has reportedly invested billions in Altos Labs. Larry Page, Google co-founder, backed Calico Life Sciences. That was one of the early, really big bets, specifically on aging biology.
Right, Calico. Peter Thiel, known for his unconventional investments, put millions into Aubrey de Grey's foundation early on, and also into Unity Biotechnology, the Senolytics company.
Okay.
And maybe the most eye-popping number is Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, who put a reported $180 million, not billion, sorry, $180 million into Retro Biosciences.
$180 million, still a huge amount.
A massive personal investment. Then there's research like David Sinclair's at Harvard, focusing on NAD plus boosters and sirtuins, these so-called longevity genes. His lab developed the ICE mouse model, suggesting aging involves a loss of epigenetic information that might be reversible. That's drawn a lot of attention and funding too.
It's incredible. These aren't just scientists and labs. These are global tech titans placing massive bets. And what about Brian Johnson? His Project Blueprint seems like an extreme personal version of this.
Brian Johnson. Yes, he's sort of the ultimate self-experimenter in this space. He spends around $2 million a year on this incredibly rigorous anti-aging regimen.
$2 million a year? What does that even involve?
It's intense. Something like 91 daily supplements, a super strict vegan diet, hours of specific exercise, constant monitoring of dozens of biomarkers, intermittent fasting. The list goes on.
And is it working?
Well, according to his data, his biological age markers are significantly younger than his chronological age, maybe 5 years younger. He claims to be aging slower than almost all 20-year-olds.
That's commitment.
It definitely is. And all this investment, from the billionaires down to extreme personal efforts like Johnson's, it's undeniably fueling the research, accelerating clinical trials. Things are moving faster because of this capital.
But that raises a really important question, doesn't it? If these treatments are developed, especially initially with this kind of private funding, and they're likely very expensive, what about access?
That's the elephant in the room. The ethical consideration.
Could we end up with a future where the super rich can buy decades, maybe centuries more life while everyone else doesn't? A massive lifespan gap.
It's a huge concern. It risks exacerbating existing inequalities on a scale we've never seen before. Longevity could become the ultimate luxury good.
That's a deeply uncomfortable thought. So the science is racing ahead, fueled by billions pushing boundaries. But it forces us to ask these profound questions. If we can do this, if we can achieve something like LEV, should we?
Exactly. We shift from the can we to the should we, and the what does it mean if we do?
Is wherever a blessing? Or is it actually a curse? It throws us right back to philosophy, doesn't it?
It really does. Think about Albert Camus and absurdism.
Okay, Sisyphus pushing the rock.
Right. Camus argued that life is absurd because of this fundamental conflict. Our human desire for meaning and purpose clashing with a silent, indifferent universe and the finality of death.
So death gives life meaning, in a way, or at least tension.
Or rather, the awareness of death creates the tension that forces us to seek or create meaning. If life is precious because it's finite, does making it potentially infinite dilute that preciousness?
Does endlessness make everything less significant?
That's the question. Camus might say immortality doesn't automatically grant meaning, it just extends the time frame of the absurd struggle. His solution wasn't to escape the absurdity, but to embrace it defiantly. Find meaning in the struggle, like Sisyphus finding purpose in his eternal task.
Find meaning in the living, not the length. Interesting. What about other perspectives? Nietzsche, perhaps. I imagine he'd have some strong views.
Oh, absolutely. Nietzsche had a very different, quite stark warning. He cautioned against placing life's center of gravity outside of life itself, like pinning all hopes on an afterlife or some transcendent realm.
Okay, focus on this life.
Exactly. He called the idea of personal immortality a vast lie that corrupts reason and makes our natural life-affirming instincts seem suspect.
A lie. Why?
For Nietzsche, believing in immortality was an outrage upon noble humanity. He felt that abandoning that belief actually brings profound relief. It frees us from the pressure of eternal judgment, allows us to live authentically now, without constantly preparing for something else.
So mortality is actually good?
In his view, yes. He even called mortality a friend, a blessing, because it sets boundaries, gives life shape. It prevents us from endlessly deferring meaning. Immortality, for Nietzsche, might be the ultimate curse, endless existence without purpose. Mortality forces us to create our own meaning within the time we have.
Wow. Camus embraces the struggle against meaninglessness. Nietzsche sees mortality as the key to authentic meaning. Very different takes. This makes me wonder about the individual, you know. What would it actually feel like to live for centuries? The psychology of it must be staggering.
The psychological landscape is almost impossible to fully grasp. Let's just start with memory and identity.
Our brains aren't infinite hard drives, right?
Not even close. Over centuries, would we just forget our earlier selves? Would memories need to be constantly overwritten? If your core memories change drastically, are you even the same person?
That's a deep question. Who are you without your past?
And biologically, maintaining a brain for centuries would likely require significant ongoing neuron production or drastically reduced cell death just to avoid slow decline. Then think about loneliness and loss.
You'd outlive everyone.
Everyone, your spouse, your children, your friends, generations of them. Nations might rise and fall. You'd face an endless series of farewells.
Constant grief. Or maybe numbness.
Perhaps. Humans adapt. But could we adapt to that level of perpetual loss without becoming emotionally detached? We know chronic loneliness already has severe psychological and physical health consequences.
Okay, memory fades, everyone you love dies. What about just boredom?
The fear of boredom and stagnation is real. Would anything hold its novelty after 200, 500, 800 years?
Would you just run out of things to do, things to care about?
Some argue the human capacity for learning, love, creativity is maybe ever expansive, always finding new frontiers. But there's also a significant risk of minds becoming rigid, losing adaptability, losing that crucial neuroplasticity. Imagine feeling completely adrift in a future you no longer understand.
And purpose. If there's no deadline, do you lose motivation?
That's the final piece, redefining purpose. If life stretches out indefinitely, does that urgency to achieve, to create, to make your mark evaporate?
Because there's always tomorrow.
Exactly. Death, that cosmic bell as some call it, arguably forces us to engage, to prioritize, to value the present moment. Immortality might inadvertently remove one of the key drivers of human ambition and appreciation. It's the immortality paradox. Achieving it might rob life of what makes it meaningful.
It really does sound like a potential minefield psychologically, which leads us inevitably to the spiritual dimension. If the body persists, what happens to the idea of the soul, of faith, consciousness, and these wild ideas like digital afterlives?
Yes, and it's fascinating because humans have been wrestling with concepts of the soul and afterlife for millennia, long before we had CRISPR or Senolytics.
Right, this isn't a new conversation in essence.
Not at all. Look at the ancient Egyptians. They saw death as a critical transition, not an end. Their elaborate mummification wasn't just ritual, it was almost a plan B for preserving the body just in case, alongside their complex beliefs about the soul's journey.
And the Greeks.
They often saw the psyche, the soul, as a sort of breath of wind that left the body for a rather bleak underworld. The point is, across cultures, there's this persistent intuition about something non-physical, something that endures beyond the body.
So how do these ancient, diverse ideas about the soul interface with the modern scientific push for physical persistence? What are the traditional views being challenged?
Well, the views are incredibly varied. In Christianity, there's often a concept of humans as triune beings, spirit, soul, body. The soul is sometimes seen as the unique personal essence, linking spirit and body, containing mind, will, emotions. And a core belief is the eventual resurrection into a new, perfect, eternal body for the eternal spirit.
So embodiment is still key, but transformed.
Yes. Compare that to, say, Platonic dualism, which heavily influenced Western thought. Plato saw the soul as immortal and fundamentally separate from the perishable body. The soul existed before the body and continues after. Salvation or enlightenment was about the soul escaping the prison of the material world.
A much sharper separation.
Definitely. Then in Judaism, you often see the body and soul as separate but also deeply intertwined, indivisible partners. The body isn't a prison, but a sacred, God-given vessel. The term nephesh can mean the whole self, the living being. While some traditions speak of a conscious soul after death, the emphasis is often strongly on this life and, critically, on the future bodily resurrection. Sanctity of the body is huge.
Okay, so different traditions, but many involve a soul concept and some form of afterlife or continuation beyond physical death. How do these faiths generally view the scientific pursuit of radical life extension here on Earth?
It's really nuanced, and you can't paint with too broad a brush. In Christianity, many theologians wouldn't necessarily oppose life extension achieved through medicine working within nature's laws. It's often distinguished from demanding true immortality, which is seen as a gift from God. Death entered the world through sin, so fighting disease and decay can be seen as restoring God's original intent up to a point. Living until the second coming wouldn't inherently be wrong.
So it's okay as long as you're not playing God.
That's often the line, yes. But in Islam, the perspective tends to be different. Life and death are seen as fundamentally ordained by Allah. The Quran explicitly states, "Every soul shall taste death." While pursuing health is encouraged, seeking indefinite physical life through technology can conflict with the core tenets of humility and submission to God's will. Death can even be viewed as a blessing, a transition.
A necessary transition.
Yes. For Judaism, with its strong emphasis on the sanctity of life and the body, extending healthy life is generally viewed positively. However, the concepts of an afterlife and bodily resurrection remain central. The focus is heavily on the partnership of body and soul in this world.
And Eastern traditions.
In Hinduism and Buddhism, you have the concept of samsara, the continuous cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. The ultimate goal isn't to prolong one earthly existence indefinitely, but to achieve moksha, or nirvana, which is liberation from that very cycle. So, extreme physical longevity on Earth isn't really the desired end state.
So across the board, there's this inherent tension. Science pushing for physical permanence challenges faiths that often see earthly life as temporary or death as a necessary, even positive step.
Precisely. It forces a confrontation with core beliefs about life, death, and what comes next.
And then things get even weirder. Digital immortality. Uploading your mind to a computer. What on earth does that do to the concept of the soul?
Right. This is where science fiction seems to bleed into reality, or at least into serious proposals. The idea, championed by people like Kurzweil again, is transferring your entire consciousness, memories, personality, everything onto a digital substrate. A computer, a network.
A mind file backup.
Essentially, yeah, offering freedom from biological decay. Kurzweil predicts this might be feasible by 2045. But this vision often implicitly treats the body as just disposable hardware. Mere meat, as some critics put it.
And how do religious traditions react to that?
Generally, with profound skepticism, if not outright rejection. From a Christian perspective, it denies the inherent goodness and sacredness of God's physical creation, including our bodies. True resurrection involves a transformed physical body, not a disembodied data stream. Some might call virtual reality an oxymoron in this context.
Okay, embodiment is non-negotiable there.
Largely, yes. In Islam, the view is often that the soul, ruh, is created directly by Allah and breathed into the body. It cannot be replicated by human technology like a computer program. A digital copy wouldn't be the original person, wouldn't possess that God-given soul. It could be seen as trying to circumvent God's plan.
An attempt to bypass the divine.
Something like that. And in Judaism, again, that emphasis on the body-soul partnership is critical. A digital replica wouldn't be the same person, nephesh, because it lacks the divinely created soul in the sacred physical vessel. It raises deep questions about identity as a perfect copy you. Most traditions would say no.
So digital immortality might offer a kind of persistence, but perhaps not the persistence of the self or the soul as traditionally understood. It really forces us to ask what it means to live on.
Exactly. What constitutes you? Is it just information patterns or something more intrinsically tied to our biology and perhaps a spiritual dimension?
Okay, so we've wrestled with the science, the philosophy, the spirituality. Let's bring it back down to earth a bit. If, hypothetically, we achieve significant life extension, maybe even approach LEV, what does that do to society? The practical, day-to-day stuff. How do we live in a longevity economy?
The impact would be absolutely transformative, starting with economics. Our current systems are just not built for this. Think about retirement.
Yeah, it seems unsustainable even now.
Totally. Projections estimate a global retirement savings gap nearing $400 trillion by 2050, and that's based on current longevity increases. Models based on retiring at 65 and living another 20 years completely break down if people live to 120, 150 or longer in good health.
400 trillion, that's an astronomical number. What about work itself? Do we all just work for 100 years?
It would fundamentally change workforce dynamics. People would likely plan for much longer careers, potentially having multiple distinct careers over their lifetime. Lifelong learning wouldn't be a buzzword, it'd be a necessity.
And the value of older workers might change.
Dramatically. We currently sideline so much experience. A longer-lived, healthy population means harnessing the productivity and wisdom of older individuals for far longer. Countries like Japan and Denmark are already seeing higher employment rates among older groups. Multi-generational workforces could become the norm, and healthcare, of course.
Would shift completely, I imagine.
From treating acute illness late in life to a constant focus on prevention, rejuvenation, and maintaining health span. That requires entirely different funding models, investment priorities, a total rethink.
It sounds like a massive societal re-engineering project. But again, that access question looms large. You mentioned the lifespan gap. Is this incredible future only for the wealthy?
That remains the most pressing ethical challenge, the equity divide. If these therapies are expensive, restricted, we could see a world starkly divided between the long-lived haves and the shorter-lived have-nots.
Like the digital divide, but for life itself.
Precisely. It could be the ultimate form of inequality. Bioethicists are rightly sounding the alarm, pushing for frameworks that ensure equitable distribution.
But is there a counter-argument? That maybe it starts exclusive but becomes cheaper?
There is. Some proponents argue it's like early computers or smartphones, initially very expensive, exclusive luxuries. But eventually, innovation and market forces make them widely accessible, potentially even reducing global inequality in the long run. It's a fierce debate.
Yeah.
Immediate equity versus potential long-term ubiquity.
A really tough ethical balancing act. So, assuming we somehow manage the economics and navigate the equity minefield, how does society adapt more broadly? What about things like population, resources, family structures?
Huge questions. On population, you hear concerns like Jane Goodall's would vastly longer lives strain Earth's resources beyond capacity.
A legitimate fear.
But there are counterpoints. Birth rates are already declining in many developed nations, and some argue that people with a much longer lifespan might actually be more invested in long-term sustainability precisely because they have a greater stake in the planet's future.
Interesting point. What about generations? Would younger people feel squeezed out?
That's the intergenerational equity issue. If older generations hold on to jobs, housing, political power for much longer, could it create resentment and block opportunities for the young? We need proactive policies, new social contracts perhaps, to manage resource allocation fairly across age groups.
And underlying all this is the quality of that extra life.
Absolutely crucial. The focus must be on extending health span, not just lifespan. Adding decades of sickness and frailty isn't the goal. The real prize is extending the period of healthy, active, purposeful living. It's about thriving for much longer.
So just living longer isn't enough.
Not at all. If LEV arrives without us simultaneously adapting our financial systems, our work culture, our ethical frameworks, our social support, the result could be deeply unstable and unfair. We need foresight, interdisciplinary planning, starting now.
This deep dive has really taken us on quite a journey. From those ancient human dreams of cheating death, right to the labs, pioneering longevity, escape velocity, cellular reprogramming, Senolytics, stem cells, gene editing. It's clear we're witnessing a potential paradigm shift in how we even view aging, not as inevitable decline, but as damage that might be repaired.
And with that scientific leap comes this massive expansion of the philosophical and spiritual questions we have to confront, re-examining purpose, identity, the sting of loss, the nature of the soul itself, especially when faced with radical ideas like digital consciousness.
And as we just discussed, the societal challenges are immense. Adapting our economies, ensuring equity, managing intergenerational relationships. The threat of a stark lifespan gap really highlights the ethical imperative here. How do we make sure these advances benefit everyone, not just a select few?
Ultimately, this entire quest, this scientific push for longevity, it forces us back to the most fundamental question. What does it mean to live a good life? How do we find enduring purpose, connection, and meaning, especially in a future where death might not be the definitive final chapter we've always assumed? It makes you think of Mark Twain.
Oh, what did he say?
He said, "The fear of death follows from the fear of life. A man who lives fully is prepared to die at any time." Maybe the quest for more time forces us to really consider how well we're using the time we have.
That's a powerful thought to end on. So after exploring all of this, the science, the philosophy, the potential futures, what does it all mean for you listening right now? What parts of being human, of your own experience, would you want to preserve or enhance if forever became an option? Thank you for joining us here on My Mind MashUps for this deep dive into the promise and the perils of forever.
It's been fascinating to explore.
If you found this conversation thought-provoking, please do like, share, and subscribe or follow My Mind MashUps. We'd love to have you join us for more deep dives into complex topics.
Your support really helps us continue these explorations.
You can find My Mind MashUps on Amazon Music, Audible, Facebook, Pocket Casts, Spotify, and YouTube. Just search for My Mind MashUps. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and maybe most importantly, keep living fully in the magnificent and maybe changing uncertainty of being human.